Today on the Bridge Podcast, we're diving into the importance of math and science and how they shape real-world opportunities for students. Joining us is Eisenhower High School student Angel Duarte, whose passion for science has led to exciting academic success. We're also joined by Juanita Chan-Roden, agent of science and career programs, and Dr. Edward D'Souza, lead academic agent for math, science, college, and career pathways, to discuss how these subjects open doors for students and their futures. Let's get started.
So I want to thank you, Dr. D'Souza, for being here, and Miss Chan-Roden for being here. I have to make sure it's like Miss Chan-Roden. And also thank you, Angel, for being here from Eisenhower High School. And you are a senior this year?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I want to first start off with our student. I want to ask you, how has science changed the way that you think about the world?
So growing up, we were just taught the basics of science is like the way of life. It helps you think, it helps you learn. But as I grew on with my levels from elementary to middle school to high school, I learned that if you could see anything, there's science involved in it. So
Now, who is your science teacher at Eisenhower?
my current one is Ms. Valmores for
Okay.
AP Biology.
AP Biology, Wonderful. So I want to run over here to you, Dr. D'Souza. I know that you have a very decorated career spanning over 3 decades, and you've done a lot for math and science. Can you talk a little bit about your history and also how is important math and science in everyday life? I know those are 2 or 3 questions all at once.
So my major was physics and math in college, and the reason I like that is because I love science, and then of all the sciences, I think physics has a lot of math involved in it, and you can actually see the application of math. So actually, if you're talking about an automobile going, you actually can, we have both the actual and the theoretical. You can theoretically calculate what is going to happen if, in terms of the accelerating, deceleration, etc. But then you can actually try it out by doing it in a car. And so you can have both an actual model and a theoretical model. And that's where math actually gives you models and what you can build. If you want to build the fastest car, what do you need to do?
And when you started off your career as a math teacher as well in the Rialto Unified School District, right?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I really enjoy teaching math because I think I can make math simple for kids to understand. And I always go by the big ideas rather than a formula. So to me, for example, if you can teach us big idea like proportions, and you can teach a whole bunch of math problems related to proportions, then kids actually learn it more rather than learning a formula for this or formula for that, because all kids think is math is made up of all these formulas, which is not necessarily true.
So thank you so much, Dr. D'Souza. So I do want to say that you have been very influential and very hands-on in math and science, and there's so many different programs that we offer in the Rialto Unified School District. Before I jump over to Angel, can you tell us a little bit about the programs that we have, the robust programs?
Sure. So we're really excited to be able to offer ways of making learning more engaging through science. And what we're really hoping is that we help students to understand that science and math help you better understand the world around you and change your thinking a little bit into something that we like to call computational thinking. And
help me, with
yes,
that word.
for sure. So computational thinking is this idea that the whole world can be, all of the things that you do in life can be encompassed by a series of problems potentially. And when you're approaching a problem, you can solve that problem by following a sequential set of steps, right? And so when we're thinking about computational thinking is really the bridge between math, science, computer science, environmental science, and just life in general, and what makes math and science relevant for real life. And so in order to do that, we've really tried to connect science instruction with different careers and thinking about the whole thing all the way through. A coherent sequence of science for us might look like STEM in industry and advanced manufacturing. Hey, if I'm going to be a manufacturer in this area, what I'm going to need to do is I've got this great product idea. I'm ready to do the hustle. So how do I take this product idea and turn it into like a money-making adventure for me? That requires me to take it and to break it down into little steps, right? First, I have the step of making the product. Then I have the step of marketing the product, then I have the step of, really getting the product out to the community potentially, or the logistics that it takes to get there. So we have something called STEM in industry and advanced manufacturing. We have something called STEM Cares, and STEM Cares stands for STEM cultivates active, responsible environmental stewards. And that's the same thing. When we're looking at the world around us, hey, there's lots of environmental problems. How do we figure out how to solve some of those problems? Because sometimes when we just look at science as a series of facts, it leads to people feeling like, oh, these facts are set in stone and there's nothing that we can do about them. And that's actually not true. We have one called STEM FAN, and there's a creative spelling for that, and it stands for STEM in public health and nutrition. So it's spelled with a PH instead of an F. There it is. We have another one called STEM LEAPS, which is STEM in law enforcement and public services. So really thinking about...
So we do work with certain areas
100%.
And we encompass it with STEM. And I want to go back to Dr. D'Souza in a minute here, but I do want to ask you, Angel, because you're a senior at Eisenhower High School and you love math and science. Yes. Okay. What do you want to do when you grow up? When you graduate high school and you enter college, what is your long-term career goal?
So, the start of my senior year, I was set on being a specialty pharmacist. And in order to do that, I thought of what majors would fit that, and I chose chemical engineering. And that's the route I'm taking. But if it so happens that I choose a different route, the next route I would take is molecular biology.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
Yes.
And you came up with this by yourself? Did you do some research, or do you have a pharmacist in the house, or how did you come up with this career choice?
I came up with it from the love I have of science. I love science so much. I have the best science teachers.
Aww.
They teach me so much, and they're so supportive. So the molecular biology came from my AP biology teacher, what she's been teaching us.
What's her name?
Miss Valmores.
And he was telling me a great story in the lobby about his electrophoresis lab. Did you want to share that story?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So recently we did a lab about electrophoresis, and if you don't know what that is, what we did was we got a gel-like substance that is made of agarose, and what we would do is we would put molds that have divots in the middle of the gel, and we would pipette DNA inside the gel. So after that, we would add a water-like substance that would conduct electricity, and over time, the DNA strands would separate from negative to positive, and that's how electrophoresis works.
And so you can see these different genetic markers. So going back to STEM FAN, like this would be a great example of that. And going back to computational thinking, when he's talking about the steps, so you want to learn more about DNA. What do? First, you have to create the gel mold. Then you have to, pipette in those things. Those are the steps that it takes to kind of create that understanding of, hey, I have this large problem and I'm going to separate it into small chunks so that I can solve it over time. He was sharing also how that impacted a smaller story around a toaster. You want to tell me about the toaster?
Before you tell me about the toaster, hold on. I do want to hear it. I do want to ask Dr. D'Souza one question. I know that when we had gone to, I think it was at Rialto High School one time, you talked, and it was great because you had said that math is a part of everyday life. You use it every day. Explain that, because it was important.
So I wanted to also go back to what Juanita said about the steps in science, in math, because when you think of computer science and you're programming in computer science, you actually have to put steps in math there. So for example, if I give you a quadratic equation, give me the A, B, and C, and then I'm able then to just put it in the computer program and be able to get the value for X. And again, you would have to know how to write those steps out in coding when you're programming to be able to do that. And if our kids do those, those steps necessary, then they actually will learn how to transfer that to programming. And believe it or not, you see DOEs or you see A through G credit, that computer science A counts for math credit now.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to talk, I didn't want to take away the train of thought. Tell me about what you were explaining to me in the lobby. Give us the good stuff.
So a couple of weeks ago, I was making toast for my sister, and so I got the toaster and I plugged it in, and as I pushed the button, I realized it just kept springing back up. So I knew there was a problem with the toaster.
Right.
So what I did was examine the cord of the toaster to see if anything damaged or cut the toaster. And there was nothing there. So the next step I could think of was maybe it's the outlet. So using the top outlet, I know it didn't work. So I went to the bottom outlet, and that didn't work either. So either it was the whole outlet, or it was the toaster as a whole. And if it was a toaster on a whole, it would have been a huger problem that cost more money.
Yes.
So
or not to mention maybe a fire. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So I took it to my room and I plugged into one of my outlets that I know work, and it did work. So I know that it was one of the outlets in the kitchen that was the problem.
And I feel like that's just what. So you asked a question to Dr. D'Souza, which is how is like math
related
relevant
to
in the everyday world?
Exactly.
And a lot of times people ask that same thing about science, and that's how it's related. Because if you really dig into the deep pieces, you would say, what does electrophoresis has to do with toast?
Yes.
But really, it's not about electrophoresis, and it's actually not even really about toast. It's about training your brain to think about problems in a slightly different way. We're training our brains to think about
Logically.
Exactly. That
Logical.
logic model. And I think that that's also what
Program.
people sometimes there's like a bad rap with math and science because you get so
I think
caught
sometimes
up.
there's a fear.
Yeah.
Because you feel like it's complicated.
Yes.
What's this? But to some people it comes easy. And this is common sense. The outlet here isn't working. The wire is fine. Why is the spring not going down? And so you took your toaster into the into the bedroom or wherever you put it, and it worked. So it was an outlet. That's what we found out. But that's problem solving. And it seems like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. Some people would say, oh, throw the toaster away. It's broken. But what he's doing is he's finding creative ways to say, is it broken? What's really broken? What isn't working? Is it the outlet? So, again, that's problem solving on your end. And I'm sure your mother or your father are happy that you didn't throw away the toaster. So that's also a good thing. But I did want to go back to you, Dr. D'Souza, on when you had explained how math is a part of our everyday life. We use it every day. Examples.
So again, it goes back to logical thinking. Like if I'm driving, like what's the fastest way I can reach my destination if I'm running late?
That's math.
Okay, or if you have, we are in education, right? And I'm figuring out a situation. Let's say I'm a administrator at a school. I have to think logically. Like I think this is what happened first. This is what happened second to come to my conclusion.
I think that the issue is that a lot of times people are like, this is common sense. We have to think logically. But the truth is, it's not common sense. And sometimes people jump to conclusions that aren't logical.
No.
But believe it or not, that actually happens. And so practicing these skills in these different formats, in math, in computer science, in science, it helps us to develop that as a thinking pattern. And that thinking pattern becomes really important because it empowers us throughout our lives to make really strong choices for ourselves and for our families based off of like, hey, I approach this. It's not the end of the world. It's just, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. It seems overwhelming right now, but if I break it down into smaller chunks, I can get this done. And that is a really empowering tool for our students, for our teachers, for our families.
Excellent. So Dr. D'Souza, tell me, what is the future of math and science? What does it look like for K-12 students in the Rialto Unified School District?
So I think, the standard of math and science has come up quite a bit because when I first came to teach, there were no standards in the whole of the nation to begin with.
Isn't that scary, though?
Yeah.
It really is.
So everyone had their own thing, what a kindergarten kid should have, a first grade.
Right.
So one of the great things that came out of California standards and later became Common Core standards is basically that every grade level had a prescribed curriculum that they had to do, or prescribed standards that they had to be prepared for. And I still remember years ago, people would say, oh, kindergarten kids could never be able to do this. And kids rise to the occasion. Again, it's how we relate it to them and how we make it meaningful to them.
Excellent. Very, very true. Very true. And the standards change depending on what the Department of Education, what the federal government, and it becomes a wider array of political decisions that are made. But at the end of the day, that classroom teacher and that, when they get it, they get it. And so you're in a position where you see that our students are learning more, they have more programs, as she was mentioning, and opportunities.
Because our teachers don't even have to think what to teach, it's out there what to teach. But how we teach it is what we bring our creativity to, right?
Absolutely.
I might do it as a song, I might do it in different ways, but kids learn, even if you entertain them, kids learn that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Angel, what do you, we've been talking about math and science. I just want to get back to, what do you like to do on your spare time? You have any hobbies at Eisenhower?
Yeah, I have two. I am in orchestra and in color guard.
You're in color guard and orchestra, great. And so what is the best part of Eisenhower High School?
I feel like it's the students. They're so welcoming, and like the social life. If you're in a good group, then it feels like a really close family, and that's how I feel with Eisenhower Band. I feel like a big tight family.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know 15, 20 minutes goes by fast. Thank you, Miss Roden, for being here. And thank you so much, Dr. D'Souza. I want you guys to come back. We could talk a little bit more, but I do want to thank you, Angel, and I want to wish you good luck as you graduate. And one day, you're going to be filling my prescription, so I'll be super nice to you. I know that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Saida Joffrey. Until next time, we'll see you on the Bridge Podcast.